Action.
We're happy. Josh, I got these drinks here, okay? Okay, so we're here. We're really happy to welcome back Josh to talk to us about product design and meeting new business needs. So just to give you a little bit about who we are, UX Wizards, maybe some of you already know this if you've been coming for a while, but we are a South Bay collaborative UX learning community. So what that means is we like to get together, we like to share ideas, we like to learn collaboratively from each other. And so we like to encourage people to also step up and make this group what you want it to be. So if you feel like there is a certain event that you want to happen, just let us know. Or maybe you want to host an event, maybe you don't actually live in the South Bay, host an event where you are, totally happy to put that on our meetup. We're just, we just like to grow together. And of course, we're not just UX designers or researchers. Anyone that's interested in UX is welcome to join us. Here's our socials. You can, I don't know if you haven't already joined our Slack, or a lot of you probably got to us through our meetup group. We also have our Instagram. Oh, sorry, I'm taking pictures. Okay, great. And then thank you so much to our volunteers. This wouldn't be what it is without you. So thank you so much for coming. All right, we're gonna welcome Josh Gold to the stage. He's been a wizard for a few years now, and so there he is.
Oh, you guys switch laptops very elegantly.
I'll hand this over to him when he's ready.
How's everybody doing today?
Great. Thank you.
Glad to hear it. Saw some thumbs up, some okays.
So the operator doesn't work.
All right, here we go. This is actually Josh's second time doing a talk for us, so we're excited to bring him back. And it was during COVID that we did our first talk, and I didn't know what he looked like. Like, I had never seen his legs.
I was way more comfortable just showing the top half of me.
Yeah. So thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So thank you, Gary, Laura, and Seiko for inviting me and hosting me. Seiko especially has put a lot of work in, so thank you so much for all the help. Today I'm going to talk about designing for the business. This is a little bit different than the original title that I shared on the poster, because when Seiko asked me to give her a title, I didn't yet know what I was going to talk about. So it's changed a little. I think after talking to a few of you, this might still be relevant. If anyone has any questions, please ask them at the end, and I will answer anything that is top of mind. So designing for the business. So just to give context about who I am, I'm a product designer who was always tired of being handed solutions. I started out as a graphic designer and did not like being told what to do. I wanted a lot more influence on core business needs, what needs we were solving, and how we were solving them. And so throughout my entire career, I've aimed to influence the business in ways that I always extended outside of the role of what the people that hired me wanted me to do. I'm a staff designer at LinkedIn currently. I've been at LinkedIn now for about 6 years. I spent about 3 years as a design manager, leading a team of ranging from 4 to 8 designers, solving some of LinkedIn's payments and business products and support products. And then recently I've transferred onto the campaign manager team, which is ads and marketing. This talk is, as I said, transitioned away from AI, and is going to speak more towards my ethos as a designer, the things that I have always strived to do in my career, and how I think those are actually very applicable in the challenges that we face as product designers today. So I'll start by saying business acumen is no longer optional. I'm sure everyone here is facing changing roles, people that are trying to put you into different boxes, sometimes different boxes, sometimes new boxes, sometimes it's one box with a lot of different boxes inside. No matter what you're going to do with AI, whether you're shipping code, whether you are trying to become more of a product strategist, I think business acumen is a core skill that we need as product designers to make sure that we're truly adding value for the companies that we work for. And I think the most dangerous thing about being a designer, whether you're talking about today or over the last 20, 30 years, 40, 50, is that our role has always changed with the times. We started as print designers, you evolved to packaging designers, you then went to interaction design, product design, and now my bet is design and business strategy. So our jobs have never stayed the same. Designers have always needed to have their pulse on what was happening in the companies that we work for and try to figure out what they're going to do next. And I think that should give you all some comfort, because we're not solving any new problems today that our ancestor designers haven't addressed previously. So they've done it in the past. So many of my mentors and my peers have transitioned from those fields, and we can all do it too. So that's kind of what I hope everyone takes away from this, is a bit of positivity. So going into what I think, as I said, the next step is business and design. And the reason I think this is really important is that, at least in my own experience up until recently, design has always justified our business impact as craft and quality. Two things that are really, really important to our users and to designers, but unfortunately, two things that are really hard to measure. And the reality is that we are part of a business. Our business exists to create revenue for themselves or their shareholders. And if we can't map our impact to business metrics, then our function is not going to last very long in an environment with tighter interest rates and more corporate controls over what they're spending money on. So we really need to figure this out. How do we justify our business impact? And the good news is that our skills, leveraged correctly, can be mapped to business goals. And this is my own perspective on this. I don't know if this has been widely adopted across the industry, but I've really seen and experimented with a lot of different ways to do this. And I feel like what I'm going to share today are some of the things that I do, how I make it work, why I think they work, and hopefully you all can learn a little bit about how to do those things in your own roles. So design skills naturally evolve into product skills. Where we needed to have soft skills on my career performance indicators for LinkedIn, I can rewrite that and call it expedite feature development with cross-functional alignment. Designers are expertly geared at managing stakeholders in ways that I don't think any other product partner can. We know how to take ideas, concretize those ideas, get feedback, and iterate in ways that no other product partner or cross-functional partner has to do. We discover and prioritize business-moving user problems, right? That's user research at its core, which was a separate function, but I think in the future it's probably all going to be one function, a designer who can do it all, who can really use their research skills to put their pulse on what problems are the users facing today and how do they solve business needs. Intentionally integrating features with varying priorities. So this is something that I come across every day working on a very mature product that is Campaign Manager. A PM wants to stick a feature into the campaign creation experience where advertisers can come and create campaigns. But they're thinking about their one feature or the one module they own. They're not thinking about the end-to-end journey that our users actually start with and end with. Designers are really good at that. We're really good at taking a step back and looking beyond our small little piece of the pie and figuring out how things are interconnected. So rewriting systems thinking to integrating features with varying priorities. Conserve resources with scalable systems. I think this one is again, systems thinking, design systems. We're really good at trying to create reusable components, but sometimes we define those things as good for the user. In reality, they're really good for our engineering teams. If you can design reusable components, eventually engineering can save a lot of resources by not having to reinvent the wheel every single time. Balance UX with technical limitations. This is I'm sure we all have dealt with it, but you go into a conversation with a PM or an engineer, they're like, we can't do this, and they think in binaries. You can do it, you can't do it. Designers are really good at not thinking in binaries and trying to find that middle ground, saying, I know what we need to achieve, I know like the essence of what I'm trying to achieve, I also understand those technical limitations, and I'm gonna find the balance for my team. We're really good at that. And then craft, test, iterate with hypotheses crafting. So I've also seen a lot of cross-functional partners that are just like, I want to move this metric, I'm going to ship this product. The designers, we're long-term thinkers. We don't just think about today, we think about that end result, that ideal state of the experience. And that helps us slowly iterate and test over time in ways that some of our other cross-functional partners don't always prioritize. So all of these skills you already do and can be reframed to directly impact business goals. And the good news is that at least at LinkedIn, right, all of those skills can't be done by AI yet. I have worked with a lot of engineers and a lot of PMs that try to use AI to create designs. And while it is incredibly helpful in helping me understand what they're trying to achieve, why they're trying to achieve it, it lacks all of those core skills, the depth of thinking. AI is still reliant on that human that is leading it and is prompting it and is giving it feedback and critique. And all of these skills that I just showed mean that you're going to be really, really good at that in ways that other people may not be. And then the other thing is, the reality that we all face is everybody's being pressured by tech priorities and funding. So we're all using AI, we're all trying to figure out how to do it, but we're trying to move really, really fast. That's not always great for learning, that's not always great for coming up with the ideal state, but it's also not always a bad thing. Operating with less resources is an opportunity and has been an opportunity for me. I don't wait in my job for anyone to tell me to add color to a problem. If a PM comes to me and says, I want to solve this problem, and I feel I don't understand it, hello? Does this work? All right. If someone gives me a problem and I feel I don't yet understand it, then I'm going to go out and figure it out for myself. I'm not going to work through my PM. I'm just going to go and do it and not wait for anyone. I don't let anyone tell me who I should work with. So this kind of taps into the first one. If I feel someone might have answers to the questions that I'm asking, I reach out directly. Because no one has the time to do that anymore. And if I have the time, that's a value add I bring to the business. I delegate to those with relevant skills. So when I build a full picture and of business needs and what I'm trying to do, and I'll speak to that a little bit more, if I feel that someone can do a job better than I can, then I delegate to those people. So I'm not trying to solve everything myself, but by knowing what I'm trying to do, I'm able to empower others. I get data, I synthesize it, and I translate it into frameworks with AI. So I'm sure we all know how to use AI, but this has been by far the most profound use of AI that I have in my process. It's like in the initial problem-solving stage, using AI to gather all information, craft assumptions, create frameworks, and pressure test those frameworks, and then get feedback has been like a superpower. And I'll speak more about that in a second. And then creating divergent designs, getting feedback, and convincing stakeholders. So our core skills are again another superpower, which I'll speak to in a second. So this presentation is separated into two sections. And they're maybe not as geared towards the titles I would have liked them to because of short notice, but the first section is about our function as designers. What can a design team do, or what should we focus on to drive business impact? The second section are more tips and tricks that I use in my own process that are just not about how design can achieve more business goals, but perhaps how you can be more efficient and do that yourself as an individual. So I don't know how much time I have, so I might skip story time. There's just an example where, good?
Story time.
Okay. I want to tell you a story that happened today. I put this slide in an hour ago. That demonstrates everything I shared about how I can achieve all the things I mentioned. So I started on a project this quarter where we are designing a new feature for LinkedIn, which allows advertisers to create like surveys on LinkedIn to measure how aware individuals are of of their businesses. The PM came to me and was just like, I want to do this. I know that we have an issue that some of our tests or don't always come back conclusive. And that's an issue because if an advertiser is paying 60 grand to run some of these tests and they're getting inconclusive results, they're not going to come back and spend again. But he said, I don't really know how to solve this problem, so I want you to kind of help me figure it out. So totally asynchronously, I started reaching out to our sales teams, our sales strategy teams at LinkedIn, and just started scheduling meetings with people who know a little bit about like each individual piece of this problem. Eventually, I put a document together that sort of outlined some of the key problems that all of these people thought were creating issues in the user experience that led to negative conclusivity. And then I passed it around. And even more people found the document, started commenting on it, and then wanted to get together to give me even more feedback. I got that feedback, I took it, I then stuck it into, what was that, Claude, now we use Copilot, and I processed it and synthesized it again, and created a more elaborate document that really went into depth about what the pain points the users were facing, why that was leading to negative conclusivity. I had a presentation last week with my design leaders, my cross-functional partners, where I shared that strategy, but it was too much to talk through, so I didn't really hear anything about feedback from my product manager. I met with him today, and he kind of came to the conversation and said, we need to figure out what we're doing for MVP. You did a great job of like breaking down this entire problem space. We can't do everything at once. So I want to know, like, you did a great job analyzing all of this. What do you think we should be doing for the MVP? And I shared my perspective, and he agreed with it, and he gave me some feedback about how to focus on like small MVP issues. But overall, it was a great example of how I executed all of those things I outlined to really drive solutioning and product development, and not just the interaction design. And so what I'm about to share with you is sort of all of the before designing stuff that I did in that story that helped make that work. So the first thing is a quote from my VP. Don't wait for someone to give you permission. You need to demonstrate value and earn trust. We all work for companies of different sizes. Some really large companies, some really small companies. No one is ever going to go to a designer and say, I want you to do more. So you guys should just start doing more. Start thinking about bigger problems. Start reaching out to people and learning. Because you need to show them first what you can do, and then they'll trust you. And so that's sort of what this section is about. So when thinking about how UX should go about problem solving as a business function, I think one of the first things that we all need to think about is where are the levers that we can pull as user experience designers? Because early on in my career, I would go into a conversation with my cross-functional partners and probably be like, this is really important. But I didn't understand why it was important. I didn't understand what else they were thinking about. I didn't understand their priorities. So to start, there are a bunch of different levers to pull in a business. Some of them are just like back-end optimization, which is engineering becoming more efficient. Go-to-market motion, so our sales teams can sell better, can sell more efficiently, can change pricing, capital expenditures, so simple things like how much our office costs, and then feature development. This is our big opportunity, but it's really only one part of a much larger business, and you need to understand how those other parts work and where your priorities fit into the larger picture. So in feature development, we focus on new user-facing features that drive adoption, retention, and growth. This is your bread and butter. Get really familiar with the levers in this category while understanding that it's not always the most important thing, and you need to balance those conversations. And in that, right, don't fight company priorities, align to them. You can't convince someone that your feature is more important than a back-end optimization. If they've already chosen to do it, or potentially if you actually see there's a very large dollar amount that is attributed to that back-end optimization. So it's really important, like, listen to what your leaders are saying, listen to the all hands that your companies are given, and really learn what they care about, so that way you can tailor what you focus on to what they care about. So what business goals are your product leaders caring about? Is your business on offense? Are they trying to acquire new customers? Are they on the defense? Are they trying to retain customers and decrease churn? Right? Those are all signals that you can use to influence what you focus on, how you design those things, and how you influence your stakeholders. Is your business or product line enough? Spoke to that already. Is your team on track to hit their goals? So that's another huge thing that I face at LinkedIn. I'm sure everyone faces, is we're always behind on our goals. And we always catch up and we often supersede those goals, but that often means that our roadmap changes month to month, quarter to quarter, half year to half year. And understanding, where your project fits into those priorities, understanding what those priorities are, and being able to then shift your mindset to those new goals is really important. Once you understand all of those goals, you can then go and talk to your cross-functional partners. What I did in my example in my story is I just didn't wait for anyone to tell me go and speak to those people. I just went and spoke to them. And this has been by far the second to most powerful thing that I do in my process, aside from consolidation and synthesis with AI. I think that designers oftentimes tend to focus on craft and quality. And we spend less time speaking the language that all of our cross-functional partners do. And so if you can learn that language, if you learn what their priorities are, and then do some of the things you already do, like a competitive analysis, just like creating user personas, but then shift those things in the language that your cross-functional team can understand, that can be really impactful. One example I'll give you is we have our own design personas at LinkedIn, but I realized recently on my new team, they're not the same personas that our sales team uses. So that was a huge opportunity to just start using how they categorize their customers, so that way everybody had a better understanding of what problems we're solving for. Second, gaps that your go-to-market team identifies. Speak to your sales teams. I don't often have the funding to go and do large user research studies, but you'd be surprised what your sales teams actually know. Go to them, ask them where they're having trouble selling their products, ask them what customers are complaining about. They're not gonna tell you what you should focus on, but they'll give you data for you to take in and process, so that way you can form your own perspective. And then user data synthesized into patterns, so if you have access to data, larger companies you do, smaller companies you may not. Take that into your frameworks that you're creating, and then use that to validate your hypotheses. When you do all this right, you stop talking about craft and quality, and you start talking about decisions that move business metrics. I feel like I spoke to this already, so I'm going to skip it. Bake business into your design thinking process. So this is really then taking a step back, and all those things that I talked about, how do you work it into the design process you already have? I think everybody is saying, I've heard so many videos, I think Seiko shared a video of the design director at Anthropic saying design process was dead. I think personally that's not true. I don't think AI can produce the quality of work that a designer, a thoughtful product manager, or a thoughtful engineer can do. And therefore I think it's even more important for us to have process in order to lead AI. And to do that, take your very thoughtful process and start earlier. Who are you solving for? Which is not, again, the persona that you think is qualitative, this person has a need, but who is your business solving for? How does your business refer to them? Move on to the business what. So what problems does this user face in the business? What problems are they trying to solve? Your leader's trying to solve. The user what. So your business is trying to solve these problems, but what does that actually mean to the user? What problems are they running into in their unique experiences? Go to your sales team, talk about that. Do some user research if you can. And then the solution why. So once you build this logic train, then you get up into the solutioning. Why am I creating certain solutions? We often do this. I think concretizing this in your process can be really, really helpful. And then when you do that correctly, you no longer talk about craft and quality and the positive user experience and dark patterns. You start talking about why you made certain design decisions based on business goals. And when you can go to your cross-functional partners and say things like you're not just improving design systems, you're reducing engineering costs. You're not just removing friction, you aim to improve click-through rate at a specific touch point, which is creating significant amount of friction, which maybe is reducing churn or causing churn. And you're not designing for trust, you are addressing churn risks at a specific touch point. It's about taking these as inputs and reframing how you communicate your decisions to your cross-functional partners, so you do so in a shared language. So that was the section that talks about what we can do as a design org or as a design function. Here are just the tips and tricks that I use in my day-to-day in order to achieve those things and become more efficient. So the first is build and maintain strong relationships. I am a very stubborn person. I used to fight a lot with my cross-functional partners. They would get really, really annoyed by me, and that would be a main contributor to negative feedback in my early career. Since then, I've learned it's just no good to fight with your cross-functional partners. In a product team, like your cross-functional partners, product and engineering, oftentimes have more influence than a designer has. And so earning their trust, even when you may not disagree with them, is essential to actually influencing the business. Your leverage is your relationship. And if your relationship is not strong, your leverage isn't strong. So focus on building that trust. Focus on saying yes and instead of saying our goals are at odds. So if someone comes to you and says, I don't care about this, this is what I'm focusing on, say, I agree with that. That is my goal too, and that's why I think about this specific thing, right? So always positive feedback, yes and then again, know where you have leverage. Pick your battles, pick your fights. You're not gonna win every fight with a cross-functional partner, and they won't with you, so know which ones really, really matter and be choosy, because anytime you fight, you risk that relationship. Know it's worth it and be ready to back it up. And then if you fail to convince stakeholders, this is a personal trait that I've tried to hone over my career. It's not a failure, it's an opportunity for reflection. I have lost more battles than I have won. Almost I can guarantee it's I've won one for every 10 battles I've fought. So instead of looking at it as a failure, step back and say, why did my stakeholder disagree with me? What specific points were they caught up in? What did they not understand and why? Then I ask, was it my strategy? Was my strategy lacking? Did they give me feedback on that strategy? Can I tighten it? Can I write it more clearly in a Google Doc? What's my narrative? So how did I explain this to them? Did I not do a good job breaking down what problems I was solving? Did I not do a good job explaining how my goals were similar to their goals? Maybe next time I could do that a little better. Was my solution off? That happens way more than I'd like it to. Then you just gotta go back to the drawing board and do a better solution. And then how can you learn and shift your approach next time? Think about it, it's iterative. You'll never be a good designer. I'm a terrible designer, and I'll always be a terrible designer, but tomorrow I'll be a little bit less of a terrible designer than I have. That's a negative way to think about it, and I can be a pessimist sometimes, but that really has helped me grow as a designer. Because I never think I have achieved what good design means. I'm keeping an open mind, I'm testing, I'm iterating, and I'm growing. Even 11, 12 years into my career as a staff designer, I know I have so much to learn. And then research and synthesis AI. I've spoken a lot about this, but consolidate. Just give AI all the information you have. Whether it's assumptions you find through AI, whether it's data you have, feedback from your sales team, just feed it and then go back and forth, try to identify the patterns that you're seeing. Is there a consistent framework that you can pull out? And then how can you repackage it in a way that takes all of those small data points and makes it really, really clear about the problems you're solving and why you're solving them? Build and pressure test frameworks and docs. So when I was leading design teams, I started leading a team, and they loved doing stuff in Figma. They would put their frameworks in Figma, in artboards, and they would share Figma links. I learned very early on that our cross-functional partners do not feel comfortable in Figma. If you hand them a Figma link, there's a really good chance they won't even go into it. So get a lot more comfortable writing Google documents or Word documents or whatever your team is using. Because it's helpful to share something that your cross-functional partners are used to, and it really is helpful to write down your thoughts and polish them and get them more succinct. Figure out where you can cut stuff out of your strategy because it's duplicative. And when you can do that really, really, really well, you'll be surprised that your impact will triple because people finally understand what you're trying to achieve. Own your timeline. So this was another huge thing that I tried to get my team to do. If an engineering team comes to you and says, we're on a tight deadline, the first thing I would do is ask, when do you really plan to build this? More often than not, they would tell me they wanted to build it tomorrow, but when you start doing a back and forth, they're actually going to start building in 2 or 3 weeks. So start there, figure out what the real deadline is, and then break down your process. Say, I have 3 or 4 weeks. I think I need, let's say 3 weeks, this works perfectly. Each week I'm gonna tackle X, Y, and Z, put that in a Google Doc, share it with your cross-functional partners so they know what you're doing, they know what to expect from your work, and they can work with you easier on it. Sometimes you might say, I actually need more time. When you have a document that breaks down your process, what you're using each day for, each week for, it's a lot easier to go to them and say, I actually just don't have time to fit this one thing in my timeline. If you can wait 5 days, I can fit this in, and I can guarantee you that X, Y, and Z will be better, or more efficient, or will be better to achieve your goals. So own your timeline. It can be really, really helpful. And then finally, double down on divergent thinking and craft. A lot of this presentation focuses on what happens before design work, but the divergent thinking and craft is really what makes our skill set unique. You can't leave this behind. I think designers, the reason that we're so good at what we do is because we're able to not get stuck on one problem. We're able to iterate, we're able to think outside the box, we're able to keep pushing and say, this isn't it yet. And I think a lot of my cross-functional partners across my 11 years get stuck on an idea really, really quickly. Not everyone, there are really good PMs, there are really good engineers too, but I think it's a superpower for everybody. And it's a superpower that designers are really good at because we've trained it through critique and constant iteration. Lean into that even more. When you're designing a document, iterate, get feedback, look at it from different angles. If you're doing design work, same thing, right? Interaction patterns. I could use radio buttons, I could use checkbox, I could build this thing in so many different ways. Lean even harder into that because divergent thinking and then craft have never been more important. And then take the time to learn and stay curious. So as you look at, right, if you go back to the beginning of the presentation, I was talking about what is our leverage as designers, where can we really make an impact in the business, how do you understand what your leaders or your cross-functional partners care about. Start listening or reading materials that speak about how businesses work. So these are just things that I listen to just for personal enjoyment that have really helped me understand how businesses work. Things like, especially, I love the Wall Street Journal, I love CNBC does a lot of really good short YouTube videos. So start from just listening and learning, start putting it into your craft, and then learn and iterate from it. No one is going to hand you this. No one's going to come to you and say, I want you to do all this work. But it is absolutely within the reach of a designer because I think that we are uniquely prepared to have this level of influence. So this week, learn something new, right? Try to listen to a new podcast. Try to reframe the way you approach design problems. And then pick one stakeholder relationship where you are already close and try something new. Even tell them about it. Say, I'm trying to learn a new skill. I'm trying to understand something. Can you help me do that? And you'll be surprised they're often very open-minded. So to finally end this long rant, my throat is very dry. I, as a design manager, just wrote a bunch of documents. I hope this works. If it doesn't, tell me. For my team to help them understand how I wanted them to strengthen their processes. I hope some of these are useful. There are some things in this repo that are like what I created a design PRD to just create some structure. If you're new to working in a Google document, you're trying to build strategy, it creates that structure. I also created something about my end-to-end process in a lot greater detail. This was 2-3 years ago, so I hope it's still aged well. I think it has. In case you're trying to learn more about that, the depth of the process, and just got a lot of good stuff, I hope. So that is the end of my talk. I hope it was useful. And now I think there's a Q&A, so feel free to ask me anything. I'm also particularly curious about what everyone here is experiencing. I know that my experience at LinkedIn is like very siloed, and knowing what you're going through will help me be a better designer. So.
Stop the recording now. Yes, okay.